Security sent me my own badge report by accident, and that's how I realized the guard had been tracking me. Big office, turnstiles tap in everywhere, cameras tucked in corners like dust. I never cared. I'd badge in half awake, work until my eyes burned, badge out, get home, repeat. It was normal corporate bullshit until IT screwed up and CC'd me on an email chain about unusual access patterns. I almost ignored it, but my badge ID was right there in the first line like somebody had stapled my name to a warning label. There was an attachment, a spreadsheet. 3 months of my life turned into rows. Every tap, every door, every elevator call, every stairwell push, every time I hit the garage gate, time-stamped like a court exhibit. Whole blocks were highlighted yellow. Not random either. Late nights, weekends, anything slightly off routine. Then I saw the notes column, and my stomach just went heavy. Some lines just said verified, not logged. Verified like a person watched and confirmed. Other lines had comments, the kind you don't write unless you're actually paying attention. Late, alone in stairwell. Restroom L3, 7 minutes. Exit 21:48, no campañan. Returned with bag. Paused outside HR door. I kept rereading that bathroom one because it was so small and so invasive at the same time. 7 minutes. Like I was a machine with expected output, and somebody got curious when it took longer. My hand started shaking, stupidly like I was cold. I scrolled and kept finding more. The notes weren't on every line, which made it worse. It meant whoever wrote them chose the moments they cared about. Like a finger tapping a fishbowl. I took screenshots. I forwarded the thread to my personal email because I didn't trust it to stay in my inbox. And then I did the thing you do when your brain can't accept what it's seeing. I went straight to the source, like maybe there'd be some simple explanation that would let me breathe again. Security control room was in the basement behind a heavy door. Monitors everywhere, feed stacked like a casino. Only one guy on shift. Night guard. The one who always hit me with that smug little line when I left late like he knew me. Burning the midnight oil again. I'd always given him a tight smile because you don't start problems with the person who can decide whether a door stays locked. My report was open on a screen. Not just open, zoomed in, my name on top, my movements lit up yellow like a damn crime scene. I didn't walk in calm. I didn't have a plan. I just heard my own voice come out sharp. Why the fuck is that on your monitor? He didn't scramble, didn't close it, didn't even pretend to be surprised. He leaned back like I was bothering him, eyes sliding over me in that slow way that makes you feel examined. He said they watch out for the regulars. He said it like it was customer service. He called me predictable. That word landed wrong, like he'd been using it in his head for months. Like I was a schedule he owned. I asked who wrote the notes. Asked why bathroom breaks were being timed. Asked why alone in stairwell was written like it mattered. He shrugged and said sometimes they add context, sometimes they verify it's for safety. Safety. He said it with that practiced tone, like he'd learned the right words to make people swallow discomfort and call it policy. He didn't look guilty. He looked annoyed that I'd noticed. I walked out with my heart banging and my face hot. Back upstairs, I tried to act normal at my desk while my brain ran in circles. I kept thinking about those notes. Not just that they existed, but that someone felt comfortable writing them. Someone felt entitled to narrate me. And I couldn't shake the feeling that confronting him didn't stop anything. It just told him I was awake now. After that, I changed my routine. Not in a cute new year, new me way. In a paranoid way. I left at different times. Took different elevators. Stopped using the third floor restroom. I started holding it until I got home, like an idiot, because the thought of another note made my skin crawl. I took the stairs once, then forced myself to take the elevator the next day, like I was testing whether the building was mine or his. And then I started seeing him outside of work. First time was at my bus stop after a late shift. I came around the corner, and he was already there, standing under the streetlight like he belonged on my route. Same uniform pants, same hands in pockets. He looked up the second I got close, like a dog that hears the right car door. He did the fake surprise thing, the little lift of eyebrows like, oh wow, you here? Then he said something about me being off schedule, like I'd broken a promise. I got on the bus without answering and stood where I could see him through the window. He didn't move, just watched the bus pull away, patient, like he had time. I told myself maybe it was coincidence. People live places. People take buses. Fine. Then I saw him at my gym lobby a few mornings later. Not checking in, not working out, just hovering by the water fountain, looking at the door like he was waiting for someone. Me. When I walked in, his face did that same practice surprise. He looked me up and down and said something about me switching up my hours. My throat went tight, and I suddenly felt stupid for thinking the badge report was work stuff. This wasn't work. This was personal. Then it happened again. A grocery store near my apartment, cereal aisle, like 10 at night. I turned my cart, and there he was, standing too close to the shelves, not really shopping, just occupying space. He glanced at what I grabbed and made a comment like he'd noticed what I usually buy. That's when I felt real fear, the kind that isn't a jump scare, just a slow drop, because it meant he'd been watching me long enough to form expectations. Like he'd built a version of me in his head and got irritated when I didn't match it. I started cutting pieces out of my life. I switched gyms. I paid for rides instead of taking the bus. I stopped going out late unless I had to. I kept my head down at work and tried to avoid anything that could be labeled unusual. I hated myself for it because I knew I was shrinking my world to fit around one guy's obsession, but I also didn't want to find out what happened if I didn't. I went to HR. I showed them the spreadsheet. I told them a guard had my access history open and had typed notes about my bathroom breaks and when I was alone. I told him he was showing up at my bus stop and my gym. HR did the slow nodding thing and asked if he'd made direct threats. Like everything else is just, what, a misunderstanding? I said no. He didn't threaten me. He just acted like he owned my routine. They wrote boundary concerns on their little form like it was a mild office problem. I emailed security's general inbox too because I wanted it documented. I got a response full of policy language, and we take these matters seriously, the kind of nothing that makes you feel like a problem they want to smooth over, not a person they want to protect. Meanwhile, he kept popping up in the building when I stayed late. Not always close, not always obvious, but enough. A reflection in a dark lobby window. Footsteps that matched mine in the hallway and then stopped when I stopped. That same casual look when I'd pass him, like we were friends and I was being dramatic. Like I was the one acting weird. The night I really lost it, I worked late again because deadlines don't care if you're being stalked. Office was mostly empty, that hollow quiet where every keyboard click sounds like it echoes. I packed up and headed toward the elevator, then something in my gut twisted, like I could feel him somewhere near it. I turned and went for the stairs instead, fast, like if I moved quick enough I could outrun whatever this had become. The stairwell door shut behind me, and the air smelled like concrete and old dust. I went down one flight and saw him waiting on the landing in the half-dark. Radio off, hand behind his back, not wandering, not passing through, waiting, like he'd set an appointment with me, and I was late. He said he'd figured I'd try the stairs. Just that, calm, certain, like he'd won. I felt my whole body surge with heat. I shoved past him hard, shoulder into his chest, and he let me through too easily, like he wanted to feel that contact. Like he wanted me to know he could stand there anytime he wanted. I hit the next door, burst out, and my eyes locked on the nearest fire alarm pole station on the wall. I grabbed it and yanked. The alarm screamed instantly, ugly and loud, red lights flashing, doors unlocking, people spilling out of offices confused and pissed. I didn't stop. I walked straight into the crowd like I belonged there, like I hadn't just snapped. I moved with the flow out the front doors and kept walking past the cluster on the sidewalk, past the smokers, past the people complaining, until the building was behind me and my lungs finally took a full breath. Next morning, HR called me in. They used the soft corporate voice and said his behavior showed boundary issues. They said he would be resigning, not fired, not reported, resigning, like he was doing them a favor by leaving quietly. I asked what that meant for me, for my badge logs, for the notes, for the fact he'd been tracking me outside. They said they couldn't discuss personnel details and offer me resources like a pamphlet could unlearn the feeling of being watched. He disappeared after that. No more smug comments in the lobby. No more coincidences at my stops. But I still catch myself checking reflections in windows when I leave work. I still tense up in stairwells. I still get angry when I remember that spreadsheet, the yellow highlights, the casual verified, like he was stamping approval on my life minute by minute. Next day, HR called his behavior boundary issues and let him resign. Dude who thought my badge history meant he owned my time, fuck off. Let's not meet. I watched the guy across from me on the train write out how he'd kill someone dressed exactly like me. Rush hour, packed green line, everyone glued to their phones. The car bounced and screeched and smelled like wet coats and overheated brakes. People wedged in shoulder to shoulder and pretended we weren't breathing each other's air. I sat with my bag on my lap and my shoulders tucked in, doing that commuter thing where you act invisible so nobody picks you for their bad mood. I've been staring at the same ad above the door for 3 stops, not even reading it, just trying to get home. He sat knees too wide across from me. Cheap suit, tie loose, scuffed shoes, cracked screen. I only noticed him because he didn't scroll. He typed. Fast. Focused. 2 thumbs hammering like he was taking dictation from a voice in his head. No headphones, no music, no little laugh at anything. Just typing. I looked away because staring at someone on the train is how you end up in a fight you didn't ask for. Then the train stalled and lurched and my eyes slid back. Notes app. White page. Black text. Top line read. Subject, female, black coat, blue scarf, chipped red nail polish, sits with bag on lap. My brain lagged, like it needed a second to accept what it was seeing. Then I looked down at myself. Black coat, blue scarf, bag pinned to my lap. Nails, chipped red from last week. My stomach dropped. I pulled my hands into my sleeves, like hiding them could make me invisible again. I reached for denial because denial keeps you functional. I told myself it was a coincidence, a writing prompt, some edgy weirdo playing detective. Anything. Then I read the next lines, and that excuse died. He'd started listing where and when. Not on a platform, not at a station. Between stops, between X and Y stations. The exact stretch where the lights flicker and the doors stick and everyone rolls their eyes. Everyone knows it. People complain about it every damn day and then forget about it as soon as the train moves again. He wrote it like he'd timed it, like he'd written this line and waited for the system to hiccup. Best place to grab. Between X and Y stations, when doors jam and lights flicker. Then he typed how he'd keep a hand over the mouth so the noise stayed small. How he'd keep the body close so from a distance it looked like 2 people leaning together. Then, like he was checking a box, he added what he'd use and where he'd put it first. I won't repeat that part the way he wrote it, but the meaning landed all the same. The crowd around us shifted and complained and pushed. Somebody jammed a backpack into my knee and didn't apologize. A guy with earbuds leaned hard into the pole and bumped me every time the car rocked. A woman by the door snapped at people to move, and another guy snapped back that there was nowhere to move, and the whole thing turned into that low, nasty argument people do in public where they act like you're the problem for being in their way. Normal city bullshit, loud and petty, and I sat there watching a man map out my ending like it was normal too. I stared at him hard enough, my eyes watered. He didn't look up. He didn't scan the car. He didn't act cautious. He acted like he was writing down tomorrow's errands, like it was private even though we were jammed in a metal box together. He added another line. We'll pretend to know her if anyone notices. Practice name, my full fucking name. My face went hot and my fingers went numb. I checked my coat like maybe my badge had somehow slipped out, like maybe I'd dropped something with my name on it, like there was some normal explanation. There wasn't. I hadn't said it. I hadn't made a call. The only place my name sits next to my face is online. LinkedIn. A profile I barely use, but it's there, and apparently that was enough. I wanted to stand up and yell, "Hey, look at this, look at what he's writing." I wanted the whole car to see it, so it couldn't be just mine. But then I pictured 30 strangers turning their heads and deciding I was the disturbance, not him. I pictured somebody filming me instead of him. I pictured the conductor doing nothing because conductors don't want to get stabbed either. I hate that I think like that. I hate that it's not even paranoia, it's just experience. My phone sat heavy in my palm. I thought, take a picture. Then I pictured him seeing the angle, him standing up fast, the doors closing, me trapped with him while everyone around us pretended it wasn't their problem. Keep your head down. Don't be the one who makes it weird. That's the rule people live by here until it gets someone killed. He kept typing like nothing had happened. He added little reminders to himself. Stay calm, don't rush, pick the moment. He paused, deleted a line, rewrote it, like he was editing for clarity, like he was learning from a mistake he hadn't made yet. The next stop announcement crackled. I stood before the doors opened, like I'd just remembered somewhere I needed to be. I shoved through the crowd toward the opposite door, shoulder first, using bodies as a shield. Someone barked at me for pushing, and I finally found my voice just to hiss back that I didn't care. Another person tried to block me without even looking, just because they didn't want to shift their feet, and I shouldered past anyway. My bag strap cut into my palm. That's when he finally looked up. He watched me move away, and he smiled a little, like I'd done exactly what he expected. Not friendly, not caught, just pleased, like I confirmed a theory. He didn't follow. He didn't stand. He just saved a note, calm as hell, and opened a new blank one. New cursor blinking. New subject like I was already old news. The doors opened, and the crowd pushed me out onto the platform. Cold air hit my face, and I almost gagged. I walked fast, then forced myself to slow down because fast feels like prey. I ducked behind a column and looked back through the window. He was still there, head down, typing. I got off 2 stops early and reported it because I didn't know what else to do. I found transit cops in a little glass booth and told them what I saw. The words sounded insane as soon as they left my mouth. I kept expecting their faces to change, for them to move, to grab radios, to do anything besides stare at me like I was handing them a headache. One of them asked if the guy touched me. No. Did he say anything? No. Another asked if he threatened me directly. Not out loud. I kept repeating, he wrote it. He wrote my description. He wrote my name. My hands shook so bad, I had to clamp them between my knees. They asked if I had a photo. I said no, because I was trying not to get myself hurt in a packed car. Their faces did this tiny shift like that answer made me less useful. Like without a picture, it was just my word and my fear. I gave them his description anyway. Cheap suit, scuffed shoes, cracked phone, knees spread, typing nonstop. I told them the stations he wrote. I told them he wrote my full name. One cop asked if I was sure it was my name. I repeated it back, and my voice cracked because saying it out loud made it real in a way I didn't want. They wrote it down. They said they'd file something. We'll keep an eye out. The kind of line people use when they want you to leave. I pushed back, asked what happens if he does it to someone else, and one of them got stiff and said they can't stop someone for writing something. Like I was asking them to arrest a poem. I wanted to scream that he wrote my fucking name, that he wrote the stations, that he wrote the part where the train always breaks down, but screaming in a police booth just makes you look unstable. And then they stop listening. I walked out of that station, shaking and furious and embarrassed all at once. I took a bus home instead and sat where nobody could sit behind me. Every time a phone screen lit up near my shoulder, my heart punched. I kept watching reflections in the window, like I was waiting for him to appear behind my face. That night, I go to my LinkedIn profile like it was a liability. New photo, less info, anything to make myself harder to label. It felt pointless, and I did it anyway, because doing nothing felt worse. I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that cursor blinking on his new note, like a little heartbeat that wasn't mine. Nothing ever came of it. No call, no follow-up. Maybe they never found him. Maybe they saw him and shrugged. Maybe he got better at hiding his screen. I kept thinking about that new blank note, the cursor blinking like a heartbeat. New subject, new woman. Someone else on the same line, same hour, doing the same commuter thing, thinking they're safe because it's crowded. I still take that line sometimes. I scan every screen near me. I never sit in front of someone with a notes app open. A true crime podcast used my old roommate's living room as cover art, and that's how I learned who I lived with. I moved out of that crappy shared house 2 years ago. Thought I'd left it behind. Him with his weird hours, the heavy don't go in the basement rule, the deadbolt door he kept under a blanket for drafts. One night, I let Spotify autoplay while I cooked. New podcast came on, Shallow Graves, The Men You Already Met. Corny title. I half listened until the host said the city and street name. Then, they described the house. Off-white siding, blue door, stupid lion knocker someone thought was classy. My old address beeped out. Cover art loaded on my screen. My ex-roommate's couch, same torn arm, same ugly plaid throw. In the photo, crime scene tape sagged across it. My stomach dropped into my shoes. I turned the volume up. I stood there with a knife over a cutting board. My throat tightened and my brain went, oh no, oh no, oh no. It was mine. It was his. When I moved in, I didn't have a deep red on him. I had a Craigslist post, a handshake, and rent due in 6 days. He talked smooth, like he practiced being harmless. Day one, he gave me house rules and said them like policy. Lock the doors, don't answer late knocks, don't bring people over without warning, don't touch the basement. He watched me stop smiling, and that was the first time I felt how he liked things to go. The basement door sat off the kitchen. White wood, swollen at the bottom. A padlock on the handle and a deadbolt above it. Then a blanket pinned over the whole thing, like the door was something you shouldn't even look at. He called it drafts. I called it weird. We both shut up because every time I asked anything real, he got quiet in a way that made the room feel smaller. The rest of the house looked normal bad. The living room, though, he kept like a showroom. The couch stayed centered, the pillows stayed straight. That ugly plaid throw always folded over the torn arm. If I sat there too long, he'd drift in and tidy, moving the throw back to perfect, lining up the remote, turning the TV down like he was erasing me. Once I left the takeout container on the coffee table, and he scolded me, calm and sharp, about respect and shared spaces, like he was my manager. His hours made no sense. Random weird. He'd leave at 7 p.m. and come back at 2 a.m., or he'd disappear for a day and stroll in like he'd just gone to the gym. He'd kick off his boots, wash his hands, and go downstairs. I'd hear a thud under the kitchen floor, then a drag like something heavy sliding on concrete. Sometimes I heard nothing, and that felt worse. Sometimes the air would shift, and this metal and mold smell would creep through the vents and sit in the kitchen like a penny in your mouth. If I mentioned it, he'd say the house was old, and I was sensitive, like I was imagining it. There was a stain on the basement steps that never came out. Dark, sunk into the wood. I scrubbed until my knuckles burned, and it didn't move. I asked him what it was, and he didn't even look. Old varnish, he said, like he'd already decided that answer. I wanted to argue. I swallowed it because whenever I pushed, he didn't blow up. He got colder. He'd drop his voice and slow down like he was talking to someone unstable, and somehow that scared me more than yelling. We fought about doors. He loved locks. He'd deadbolt the back door from inside, even when I wasn't home yet. I came back with groceries one night and couldn't get in. I banged until he opened it slow, eyes flat, like I'd inconvenienced him. I told him not to do that again. He hit me with for both of us. I snapped that I wasn't his kid. He said I was being emotional. That one set me off. I told him he didn't get to talk to me like I was crazy. He didn't apologize. He just waited me out until my voice went hoarse and he still looked bored. Cars would sit outside sometimes, engine off, one person inside, watching our place. I'd text him because he trained me to report it. He'd text back, "It's fine." The car would pull away like it got the signal. He'd already be awake in the living room, TV on low, acting bored. If I asked, he'd shrug and say people got lost. The worst night was the woman at the door. I just gotten home late and I was microwaving leftovers when someone knocked hard, then pounded like they needed help. I went to the peephole and saw a woman leaning into the door, shaking, hair a mess, eyes wide like she'd been running. I reached for the lock and he appeared behind me like he'd been waiting in the dark. He slid between me and the door and told me to go upstairs. I said no because what the fuck? He said it again, lower, sharper, and his calm face dropped for half a second and I saw something hard behind it. I backed up. I hate that I did. I backed up because my body believed him. I went up the stairs and from the landing I listened. The pounding stopped too clean. I heard the deadbolt slide, the door open, a short scuffle on the porch boards, then nothing. No running footsteps, no yelling, just quiet like somebody turned the world off. A few minutes later, the bathroom faucet blasted and I smelled bleach. He washed his hands forever. The next morning, he acted normal and I acted normal because I didn't know what else to do with my own fear. After that, he tightened everything. He'd ask where I was going. He'd comment on what time I got home. If I had a friend over, he'd hover. Then later, he'd hit me with another calm lecture about boundaries. I told him the house wasn't his personal kingdom. He told me I could leave whenever I wanted. He said like a dare. So I started living smaller. I locked my door. The latch sucked, so I bought a cheap padlock, the same kind everybody grabs at the hardware store. I told myself I was being smart. I slept with my phone in my hand like that would save me. I moved out after 12 months. I didn't make a scene. I didn't accuse him of anything because I didn't have anything, not the kind anyone would take seriously. I just packed and left, and he watched me load my car. I threw that padlock in the trash because I didn't want anything from that house following me. Now I'm on my kitchen floor with a podcast telling me what my gut tried to tell me the whole time. The host says women from a recovery program started disappearing. He volunteered. He offered rides, couches, a safe place to crash. When they vanished, people blamed relapse because that's the easy story. Family screamed. Cops shrugged. Years later, a busted pipe in the basement forced repairs and exposed more than water damage. Then the host plays clips of him from old news. Same calm voice, same practice concern. The exact tone he used when he told me not to worry about strange cars because he handled things. They described the basement door and the locks and the scratches on the inside of the frame. Inside, they mentioned the padlock brand found on the inner side, and my chest tightens so hard I can't breathe right. I picture that hardware store aisle, me buying that same brand to feel safe in my own room, and I want to vomit. I picture that blanket for drafts, and I want to rip it off with my bare hands. I slept 10 feet above that fucking room for 12 months. I own the same padlock brand they found on the inside of the basement door. I keep listening anyway because stopping feels like letting him win again. I replay the woman pounding, the sudden silence, the bleach smell, the stain that never cleaned, the nights he came home and washed up like he was rinsing off a job. I think about how close I slept to that door and how normal I try to make it in my head just so I could survive the month. I called the tip line anyway, told them what I remembered, his offhand comments, weird stains on the stairs, that one night a woman banged on our door and he sent me to my room. I tell them I live there. I tell them about the rules, the locks, the blanket, the stain, the cars. I tell them about the bleach and the way his voice never changed. I don't have perfect dates. I don't have proof. I have memories that make my stomach turn and a year of moments I swallowed because rent was cheap and I didn't want trouble. I hear myself say it, and I feel this sick embarrassment, like I'm confessing to being naive. The person on the line takes it down, calm and professional, like I'm one more piece in a pile. When I hang up, my apartment feels too quiet, and I keep checking my locks like that does anything. I keep thinking about how people like him don't need masks with fangs. They just need a couch, a volunteer badge, and a voice that sounds safe. I don't know if it helps. I just know I check my future roommates a lot harder now, and I don't skip the about sections on podcasts anymore.